Hi everyone, so today I'm back with a guide to Bourjois foundations, and I know this is really highly anticipated and also a really long video in the making, just because I did a review on every single one of these foundations from Bourjois, so that after this guide to Bourjois foundations you guys can just refer to those specific reviews that you want a full day wear test on. But this is going to be a really quick video on the rundown on all things Bourjois. And yeah, I guess for starters I'll just talk about the different categories of foundation for different skin types, and that's how I would group them personally, just because I do have a little bit of combination textures, especially when I do use acne intensive products, so I do skew a little more dry when I do have a lot of flaky bits, so I do get you dry people. So yeah, on that note, I'll just start out with the foundations that are suitable for dry skin types. So for starters, I love this for ages, and even when I don't have dehydrated skin, I love it because I'm the kind of girl that even though I'm oily by nature, I'm an oily skin girl by nature, I like that kind of refreshing and radiant and dewy kind of a finish. And yeah, this is the Healthy Mix Serum Foundation. I emphasize on the serum because there's another Healthy Mix foundation which I will recommend, but yeah, this is basically the serum type formula, which is super suited to dry skin as well as combination skin. I think that this texture is one of those that I only know to be the only gel type foundation in the drugstore market. Gel meaning that it is of that consistency. A gel foundation isn't too much like a liquid foundation with a lot of water pigments. I think that this is still true to a foundation pigment type of product, but it's super hydrating on the skin. It has a very signature Bourjois scent, and I find that this is the foundation that will look the most natural. It really looks like skin, and it makes acne prone skin look really good. I'm not even kidding. It's like you can have the worst acne day, when you apply this it makes your skin look so natural yet so perfected, and it doesn't look like you're wearing a ton of makeup. I find that if you don't find this to give you enough coverage, and for me it gives it full coverage, you can easily wait for that to set and then do it in stippling motions with your kabuki brush on areas where you need to cover up any acne scarring, and that will give you the most coverage. And yeah, it wouldn't look cakey, it wouldn't look too much. And if you find this to be a little dewy for your skin, what I like to do is do selected setting. So I set it under my eye in my T-zone, and that's just perfect for an oily skin girl like me. But for dry skin people, you will love this and you will not regret purchasing this. My next recommendation for people with dry skin is the 123 Perfect CC cream, and I find that, I mean, all that color correcting nonsense is quite a gimmick, but the combination of the two, this is the 123 Perfect CC cream eye cream, so it's a concealer and it comes in the same collection, but I really like this on days where I want a super hydrating finish and also very light coverage. This gives me a light coverage when I want it to be, but it also builds up to a low medium coverage as well. I find that when I add the concealer, it just masks all my imperfections because this is super full coverage and it's really hydrating under the eye. If you struggle with finding a concealer that is suitable under your really dry and textured under eyes, definitely pick this up because yeah, it's super hydrating and it's super full coverage as well. It does crease a little bit because it is that hydrating, but you can set it with powder and all is good. But I find that you do have to set this with powder almost immediately to prevent creasing. If not, if you let it set too long, it will definitely sink into your fine lines. For the foundation, this is really watery, and also it isn't like the serum foundation because it is in this kind of packaging, and also it's just super runny, and as you spread it out on your hand, it just blends into your skin really well. It feels more like a skincare product than anything, but also it just performs if you want a very light coverage on days where you just want all your imperfections to shine through, yet you just want a very light veil of coating over your face. So I recommend this for dry skin as well. Okay, so moving on to combination skin types. I find that these are for combination people who skew a little bit more oily because they're not the most, I mean, if it's on the spectrum of suited to dry skin people to suited to oily skin, and this is the middle being combination, I find that it just teeters a little bit more to the oily skin type just because it looks really great, especially if I am producing a lot of oil throughout the day and I don't need to set these with powder and my skin doesn't look that oily, but I find that if you are combination skewing a little more dry, you might want to put a hydrating primer in precision areas. I really like the Healthy Mix foundation for combination skin type. I find it to be really thick in consistency, but also it's super hydrating. The Healthy Mix compared to the Healthy Mix serum, the difference is that this is a super full coverage foundation, and it's also just gives you a luminosity that isn't too wet looking. It just looks really naturally lit from within, if that makes sense. And I find that this bottle, I have to use really little in order to get a full medium coverage, and if I use a full pump, I will get the most full coverage consistency on my face. And also likewise in the Healthy Mix range, it just looks really healthy on the skin and it looks really put together. It doesn't look like you're wearing too much, but I have to say, in comparison with the Healthy Mix serum, this looks like you're wearing nothing, but this does make your skin look like you're wearing a little bit. I mean, a little bit to the fact that if you apply a pump and a half on your whole face or 2 pumps on your face, it doesn't look like your skin is really perfected, so it does look like you're wearing something, if that makes sense. But back to the formula, it's really hydrating, and also it doesn't accentuate my dry patches on days where I do have dry patches. I mean, on days where I'm really dry, it does kind of cling onto those areas, but it doesn't accentuate them. As I mentioned, do apply a hydrating primer. The City Radiance is another one. I find that compared to the Healthy Mix foundation for combination skin, this one is less thick, and also, I mean, it applies really similarly. I find that the City Radiance line is one that I think Bourjois shouldn't have even launched, just because it performs very similarly to what they existingly have in their makeup line. It's not super revolutionary, but that being said, this applies really well on combination skin just because it's not super thick, it's not super drying. It does induce a certain radiance to it, but it's not that kind of really dewy or super outstanding kind of a formula, if that makes sense. It's really similar to the Healthy Mix, but just slightly less drying. You guys should consider this, but as I did a really lengthy talk through about this, I think that just imagine this to be slightly hydrating compared to this. Okay, and moving on to the home stretch for oily skin girls and those that really want a mattified complexion, I recommend these two. These are the newer release from Bourjois. This is called the Air Matte Foundation. It's supposedly undetectable matte finish and has a 24-hour hold. I am an oily skin girl, but I think on the day that I was giving this a try and giving this a review, I had a lot of dry patches because, as I mentioned, I'm on a acne intensive regime, so this dry my skin out a lot. But I find that this is incredibly matte. It's like it's kind of like, it's not super drying, but I find that it blends out really well. But once it sets, which is at no time at all, like just in half a minute, you will get a matte complexion instantly. I find that this consistency of foundation is very unique because it comes out of the tube runny, but it's also thick, and it's runny but thick, if that makes sense. But it sets down to a almost budge proof base, and as I'm talking, it already has set, and it's just super drying, and it's really mattifying in the sense that your oil production will be delayed incredibly long, and this will accentuate any dry or flaky bits you have if you're dehydrated as well. But yeah, as I mentioned, do apply a hydrating primer where necessary so that this doesn't exacerbate your skin. Okay, so last but not least, for oily skin people, there's also a new launch from Bourjois. I mean, one of the more latest one. It's called Nude Sensation. I have the shade 43 Golden Nude, and it's in this pot, which is like totally different from every single Bourjois foundations they have. But it's super moussey, but the texture of this is really weird. It's like, I feel like it has a silicone slip to it, but I mean, it feels really weird on the skin. I suggest you apply this either with your fingers or a really dense brush like the Makeup Forever one. I don't suggest using it with a beauty blender or any makeup sponge, just because, as I mentioned, it does have a very weird texture to it, but because of its silicone-y kind of feel, I find that this just goes on the skin really well. And I mean, it isn't the most hydrating thing but it does mask a lot of textured areas. And also, even though in the beginning of the day it kind of looks like you're wearing makeup, but when your oils start to seep through, this is the most natural looking one throughout the day. I mean, it gets more and more natural as you wear it, and as I mentioned, the silicone slip just gives it a very demi matte kind of a finish. It doesn't look dewy on the skin, it just feels really natural and airbrushed. Yeah, airbrush is the word. It just looks really perfecting on the skin, but yeah, it gives you a very flawless complexion and it looks better throughout the day on oily skin girls. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, it just smooths over everything and it's just really amazing. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this brief rundown on All Things Bourjois, and if you enjoyed it, do give it a thumbs up. If you guys have any questions, do leave it in the comment box below and I'll do my best to get back to any of your questions. Yeah, without further ado, don't forget to give this a like and don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed it. So with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!